Okay, what's going on, guys, and welcome to a brand new episode of Energized. Russ, introduce the guest, man.
We've got MMA journalism royalty straight from Vancouver, Canada. It's Mr. James Lynch. James, how are you doing?
Doing very well. You almost had it. It's Vancouver. I think you said Vancouver, but that's okay. I appreciate it.
No, Vancouver. I can spell it for you.
Okay, there you go. I'll take your word for it.
Vancouver.
Yeah, there you go. I'm just giving you a hard time. So there you go. Thanks for having me on, guys. I appreciate it.
It's okay, man. Lynchy, you're the man. You're the man. Did you watch the weekend's fights? I assume you did. How could you not?
That's kind of my job. So yeah, I did watch it over the weekend. What a night of fights. You know, it's funny because this card was like on paper when you lost the Ortega fight and the Volkanovski fight and obviously, you know, some of the other changes on paper, you're like, you know, this is like a 2-card pay-per-view, but it really delivered. There was a lot of good performances on Saturday.
Yeah, absolutely. From start to finish, there was some top of the range performances. Basmo, give us the run of the show. Which you want to talk about first?
Okay, well, on today's show, we will be discussing all the action from the weekend's UFC 260, as Francis Ngannou is now the king of the universe, you'd probably say. Also, we have to touch on the Jake Paul, Ben Askren press conferences as well, because that went viral as well for good and bad reasons. And then finally, Bellator returns this Friday as the pound for pound number one in Bellator. Patricio Pitbull is taking on Emmanuel Sanchez for the second time in the featherweight Grand Prix semi-final. So there's a lot of things to discuss. It's going to be very, very interesting things that we're going to be talking about. But we're going to start at the very, very top. Francis Ngannou is now the king of the UFC heavyweight division. James, we brought you on here. What did you make of that performance? And did you actually think that Francis Ngannou was going to win? Because obviously he lost the first time. So and in the rematch, what did you think?
I'm not going to call myself Mystic Lynch, but I did say Francis Ngannou second round knockout. If you watch my live stream on Saturday, I said it there. The proof is in the pudding, so to speak. But I was surprised just how dominant he was. I couldn't believe how much faster he was, the sprawl, like everything in the fight. This looked like a new Francis Ngannou. And of course, we haven't really got to see his body of work because his fights have ended so quickly. So I was very surprised by that. He just it was just like from the opening bell, just, you know, pressure. Stipe was backing up, just a really good job. And then of course, when he hit Stipe, and actually, you know, if you look at the replay of how he was finished, Stipe actually sort of ran into that shot, and you can't do that against Ngannou. Ngannou obviously flatlines him and puts him out, and just a really dominant performance, and the type of performance that makes me think this guy could be a heavyweight champion for a while. I don't know how you guys feel, but I thought it was a really dominant win.
Yeah, Ross, what about yourself? Like Ngannou, how long is this era going to last?
Yeah, I think the big question going into Saturday night was how much has Francis Ngannou improved since the first fight, and the answer is a lot. We still don't actually know how much he has improved. Stipe went in there and he actually looked like an amateur compared to Ngannou, and I know that might sound harsh, but Ngannou had him again on the ropes from the first bell. I really thought if you went out first round and you told me someone won 10-9 before the fight, I would have went, oh, Miocic is probably won 10-9. He probably got a takedown in there or something. But Ngannou was throwing some heavy leg kicks. He got the sprawl in there. His boxing was on point. Despite being a nearly 30-pound heavier man, he looked the sharper of the two in there. He looked the more agile of the two. And as James said, I think Stipe landed one of his best shots on Ngannou. Thought he hurt him. Went in for a bit of a kill of his own. And I think when Ngannou actually finished him and you see the way Stipe's legs ended up, I think that made it a very gruesome knockout. And I think Francis Ngannou could be the king of the heavyweights for a long time. He has opened up the betting favorite against John Jones.
With good reason. Yeah, I think that's the type of win that really puts everyone on notice and being like, I don't know who beats him. Like even Jones right now, I would pick Francis right now. I would have to, just after how he looked. So.
Well, that's the thing, right? Obviously, Stipe, he lost his title against Daniel Cormier, like wanted the rematch, then won, and then like he won the trilogy. Like Stipe Miocic is going home now, like, and people are saying he's possibly the greatest ever heavyweight in the UFC. Like he must now. Do you think, like, as he's going home now, he wants the rubber match, James?
I don't know. I honestly don't. I mean, he's got a family. He's a firefighter. He has a lot of other things going on outside the cage. Does he want to take any more punishment? I mean, yeah, he won those fights against Cormier, but especially that second one, he was losing. His face was busted up. Does he want to go through that again? And, I think only time will tell. I think it's a bad idea if he tries to sit on the sidelines and wait for the winner of Jones and Ngannou, just because, and we don't even know if that's going to happen. I'm sure we'll talk about that later, but I think if he wants to continue fighting, he should try and get in there when he can and at least try and fight again this year, because who knows how long he could be waiting. But at the same time, he is, in a lot of people's eyes, the best heavyweight of all time. So we'll see what he decides to do. But at the same time, you're looking at kind of what you got outside the cage. It might be more appealing to just call it a career right now. We'll see.
Yeah, Ross, what about you? Like, obviously, Stipe, he's been through the wars. He's like 38. I think if it may possibly 39. He does have a life outside fighting. I know loads of people do, but like he's also like a firefighter. Like, do you think he'd be like, after seeing that knockout again? Do you think he'd want to go back in and like do that? Because he also has a very young family coming through now as well, and he has all the belts. He's lifted the glory. Like, or does he go for that one last payday? You know how people love that one last payday, Ross.
It's a bit of a strange one, because if he didn't lose so dominantly, I would say yes, he definitely did. But he lost nearly every second of the fight without maybe bar one or two punches. I think he's going to have to take some serious time away at least and reevaluate how he would actually approach another Ngannou fight. I think he came in there as if he was going to fight DC again. He came in light. He came in ready to go 5 rounds. When you're fighting Francis Ngannou, you're going to need to put a bit more muscle on, I think, to be able to even compete with his power for at least for the first, 5 to 10 minutes, for the first 2 rounds, and then hope Ngannou gets tired. I think that's what all he can sort of do. Hope Francis Ngannou gets tired. But in terms of him being the greatest heavyweight of all time, I know that's sort of set in stone for the moment. But if Ngannou can get 2 or 3 wins in this heavyweight division, he puts himself right up there, because he's already got Junior Dos Santos, Cain Velasquez, Stipe Miocic, Alistar Overeem already on his resume. So, if he can add a John Jones to that resume, he's right up there as one of the greatest heavyweights of all time himself in his short tenure.
James, is that the fight you want to see? John Jones, Francis Ngannou?
100%. They got to figure out this money thing, pay the man. I sort of support Jones in this. Like, this is a huge fight. And, I think Jones knows his worth, but I can understand as well with the UFC where, we're still technically in a pandemic. Like, are they willing to fork out all this money if you're not going to get a full capacity crowd? I mean, we saw the full crowd's going to come up for the UFC 261 card, but is that going to be the case if they do fight? We'll have to see what happens, but there's a lot of moving pieces here, but I really hope we see that. And I'll be honest, like, I know Derek Lewis has a win over Francis Ngannou. I don't know many people would be picking Derek Lewis in that rematch, to be honest, just with how good Francis looked in his last fight. So we'll see. To me, top of the list would be Jones and Ngannou, just because I have no idea if Jones can take a Francis Ngannou punch. I really don't.
I doubt many people can, but one person who might is you, Ross. Ross, who do you think actually wins that fight? Because on our latest Instagram post, it's 60% Ngannou, 40% Jones. Like, do you agree with the Energized fans?
At the moment, I do. If you take John Jones's last 3 fights and then you take Francis Ngannou's last 3 fights, and I always think you shouldn't go much past that unless you're talking about somebody who's fought before, because you're looking at some of the latest body of work. John Jones, he fought Dominic Reyes, he fought Anthony Smith, he fought Thiago Santos. I mean, they all took John Jones right to the wire. They were very, very hard matchups for him. John Jones has become quite hittable in his last couple of fights. Yes, he's bulked up, but I don't think we've ever seen an athlete like Francis Ngannou. He stood on that scales, 263 pounds of raw, lean muscle, and his power is undeniable. And I think he would close the show on John Jones in the first round. I think John Jones would actually be better fighting someone at heavyweight first, feeling that power, and then going for it. But his name recognition probably doesn't let him do that.
Yeah.
Well,
James,
and you risk him not fighting Francis too. Like, that's the issue. That's why, like Scott Coker mentioned, people were like, why are you doing Rumble and Yoel Romero right off the bat? It's because he's like, I don't want to risk that fight not happening. The UFC did that years ago. Do you remember when they were trying to get Cro Cop to fight Randy Couture? They gave him Gabriel Gonzaga, and that spoiled the plans. Cro Cop never fought for a UFC title, right? So sometimes you got to strike while the iron's hot. And I think I'd be very shocked if Jones had to fight someone else. I think the move right now is to do the title fight, but that's just me.
We all know John Jones, like, he's most effective when he's the bully. But how are you meant to step into a room and like bully Francis Ngannou? Ross, it's John Jones. Everyone's saying John Jones is the greatest to ever do it. Like, whether he was taking steroids or he was taking drugs, like, he was still going out and winning these titles. He only ever lost once technically because he was disqualified. But Ross, like, how does John Jones go about this? Like, because like, come on, we've seen Francis Ngannou in real life. He is by far the most scariest person I've ever seen.
I think John Jones, if he's going to win against Francis Ngannou, is going to need to be the heel that everyone says he is. I think he's going to have to go in there, maybe come out with one of those weird starts of the fight, crawling along the ground, maybe shoot in straight for a double leg. I think plenty of oblique kicks to the knee. I think he's going to have to do all that to derail Francis Ngannou. He should be the bad guy that everyone says he is, and he should fight every trick under the sun. Because put it this way, John Jones probably has the best fight IQ mixed martial arts has ever seen. Maybe George St. Pierre could rival him for it. Francis Ngannou was going in there with one game plan. It's an incredibly difficult game plan to stop. But John Jones, I think he's going to have to shoot in a double leg almost in the first round straight away, get him down, hold him down for the first round, and I hope that's enough to wear out Ngannou.
Yeah.
I agree. I totally agree. That's the game plan. And I agree as well. Like, play up the villain thing. People hate John Jones anyways because of the steroid stuff. Play that up as much as you can. Get in Francis's head. I think Stipe might have given Francis a bit too much respect. I mean, had he fought a guy that was going to get in his head and start talking trash, who knows how he'll react. Francis has never had an opponent like that. If you're John Jones, try and get in his head, try different stuff, and just throw this guy off his game, because that's the way to beat Francis, I think, because he's that good.
Yeah, and it also might help his pay-per-view numbers, because John Jones has never broken 1 million pay-per-view buys. Obviously, him against Francis will be big business. But if he's going to break the 1 million pay-per-view buys, he's got to be the person everyone wants him to be. He's got to be the bad guy.
Yeah, no, I agree. I completely agree with that.
Lads, Dana White alluded to that, like, Conor McGregor versus Poirier is looking set to be June 10th, I think it is. July 10th. Okay, as for UFC 264. So where do you think, like, John Jones and Miocic could potentially fight?
Or Ngannou?
Oh, sorry, John Jones and Ngannou. Where do you think, or what card or what date were we looking? Like, how much further into the future are we looking?
I don't think it happens next. I think there's too many hurdles to go through to get John paid the way he wants. I think you're going to see Derek Lewis and Ngannou, and that might happen in the summer, but it might even happen a bit later, like maybe towards like August, September, just because Francis just won the title. I'm sure he wants to take some time off and, enjoy this. It's a big moment for him, coming from Cameroon, and, you saw the videos of the crowd reacting to that. I don't think Francis is in a hurry to defend his title, and I think he wants to wait out and make this Jones thing happen, and it's going to be a lot of negotiating, but I have a feeling it's going to be drawn out, and you're going to end up seeing Derek Lewis there. I hate to be the glass half empty person here, but I just get that sense. It's been this long since John hasn't fought in a while. He's talked about going up to heavyweight for a while. The financial thing should already be figured out. Why it isn't, I have no idea. I don't know whose fault that is. Is that the UFC playing hardball? Is that his management? I have no clue. And here's the other interesting wrinkle in this. Who's Derek Lewis managed by? First round, same people as John Jones. So that'll get interesting too. If Lewis ends up getting the shot over Jones, is that going to strain the relationship with Jones in first round? We'll have to keep an eye on that.
Yeah, it's a bit of a funny one, because Derek Lewis sort of says he doesn't care if he gets the title shot. He's a bit of an enigma in himself. But look, John Jones has talked himself out of his own belt at light heavyweight because of money, and he might talk himself out of a UFC heavyweight title shot. And one way to make sure you don't get any more money is by not fighting.
Yeah,
Ross, is that next John Jones versus Ngannou for you? Because the title of this thumbnail is going to be, is Jones versus Ngannou next? So, like, James doesn't think so. What do you think?
I honestly don't think it is either. If I'm looking at it, I feel like people like John Jones are seeing how maybe boxers are being treated and how much to say boxers have in their career going forward. And I think he feels like he deserves that. Now, John Jones is probably not the easiest character to deal with, probably from a business standpoint and also from an employee standpoint. I know you want to say he's an independent contractor, but let's call a spade a spade. He's a UFC employee. And I just feel like he'll play hardball and he'll play himself out of a title shot. Dana White will happily play that hardball and go, well, you know what? Francis Ngannou versus Derek Lewis is booked next. So you can carry on waiting on the sidelines until you say that number that we have down on that page is the right number for you.
Yeah. I say he's added a few more O's onto that contract. After that, like, you're like, make it 10 million, not $1 million. But lads, I'm gonna play devil's advocate, and I'm gonna say, like, hopefully it's the next fight. You know what I mean? So like,
glass half full. I like it.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, if you would have said no, I would have said yes. You know what I mean? We're here to not get along, James. You know, that's why we bring on yourself. But
exactly, also, you guys don't like me. That's really the truth of it, isn't it? No, I'm joking.
No, that's definitely not true. That's
James. One question I have to ask you is: do you think Francis Ngannou, because he wins his fights in mere seconds, could be the most active heavyweight champion of all time?
Yeah, and also, there's not the issue of him, like I said, having other things outside the cage, like with Stipe. Like, part of the reason Stipe didn't defend his title right away or get, some fights was because the pandemic was going on and he had to be a firefighter, and there's all this other stuff. Like, you won't have to worry about that with Francis. Plus, there won't be a pandemic. I mean, the pandemic should be on the tail end of it by the time he fights next. So we'll see. But yeah, I think Ngannou will be a lot more active, I would think.
All right. Okay, we're going to look at some other fights on the card as well. Tyron Woodley went in against Vicente Luque. He was coming off three losses in a row after, like, saying he was probably one of the greatest welterweights to ever do it. He lost to Vicente Luque as well. Now, this was given as fight of the night, but James, just looking at Tyron's performance, like, what do you think he has left in the tank? Because he's put nearly 40 now as well. What do you think he has left?
I think it's PFL or bust for Woodley. Because I don't think Bellator, like a lot of people are like, oh, he'll go to Bellator. You know, he has that relationship with Scott Coker. Have you seen the type of fighters that Bellator has been signing? They're not guys on losing streaks, with the exception of Yoel Romero, which I think we can all agree. Yoel Romero, the only reason he's not in the UFC is because he didn't want to fight any up and comers. And the UFC's like, okay, well, we can't use you. We've given you like 5 title shots, so we got to move along. But you'll notice a lot of the signings are against, younger fighters, or they're fighters coming off wins. Woodley has 3 losses. That's not that appealing to Bellator, and their welterweight division is pretty deep as it is. So I don't think you'll see him go there. PFL, though, he might join his buddy Anthony Pettis and try and win some money over there. I think that's an option. Or it could be retirement. I mean, at 38, what are you really getting with Woodley at this point, right? He looked better on Saturday, believe it or not, even though he didn't get finished in the first round. But I mean, he's taken a lot of damage. He hasn't won a single round. Like, what are you getting with Woodley at this point? So I don't think there's going to be a huge market for him right now as a free agent. And he's definitely not going back to the UFC.
Yeah, Ross, what do you think about that? Woodley was your man.
Yeah, I love Tyron Woodley. I thought he was absolutely brilliant. Obviously, once he lost his belt to Usman, that seemed to break his will, break his spirit. You know, he went on and lost 75 minutes of fighting straight since that fight. Look, and then I suppose he lost to Luke there. He did give a better collection himself. I actually thought physically he looked in worse shape than he had previously. He didn't look as jacked and as ripped as he normally does. Look, I think he should hang up the gloves if he's financially set to do so. He was a great fighter. Obviously UFC champion, and maybe he could get back into doing his analysis work for the UFC. If he goes and fights somewhere else, that might hinder his future prospects afterwards.
Just not the rap career, though, right? We can agree on that.
Yeah,
I think
no,
so well.
please no more rapping. Please no more
my
rapping.
God.
You can keep the TMZ show if you really want, but no more rapping.
I think I was watching something before, people that actually do rap, they look at people who come in to rap at like over 30, and they're like, "What are you doing?" It's not meant to be. I suppose he's not cool on the streets, you know. It's like if a granddad starts doing a TikTok dance, it's like granddad. But lads, speaking of showstoppers, Sean O'Malley was back. He won by it was TKO in the 3rd round. This was like this almost seemed like he was the matador and Almeida was the human punching bag. What did you make of Sean O'Malley's comeback, James? Because we had Phil O'Connor on our show last week, and he's not really too sure about the Sean O'Malley hype train. What did you sort of make of Sean's performance, first of all, and also second of all, him as an enigma?
Couple things. I thought he had an A+ performance. I mean, he got the finish. He looked pretty dominant in that win, but it is Thomas Almeida, right? It's not the Thomas Almeida that was, before he fought Cody Garbrandt, that Thomas Almeida. It's the Thomas Almeida that's taken some damage, had a lot of injuries. I mean, even though he's, under 30, he looked like a 30-year-old in there. He looked very slow. He's lost a step by the looks of it, and that could be a variety of reasons. So while the win was great, O'Malley did everything he needed to do. Look at who he beat, right? It's a guy who should not be in the top 15. So where does O'Malley fit? It's really sort of tough to say. I know Dominic Cruz has expressed interest in a fight like that. I think that's a bad idea. Cruz would make that O'Malley boring, I think. I don't think it would turn into a very exciting fight. I think there's 2 options for Sean O'Malley. There's Rafael Sunsao, who is on the decline for sure, but he's a ranked fighter. It's a winnable fight for him. We saw Sunsao get finished in his last fight. I think O'Malley could do the same. That would be sort of a highlight reel fight to keep his momentum going and build him up. The other fight I'll throw you at is a wild card, and I know it doesn't make sense rankings wise, but Marlon Moraes. Let's just have some fun, guys. Let's see what happens here. How far gone is Marlon Moraes in his career right now with losing those 2 fights by TKO? Is it enough to beat a Sean O'Malley, or is it not? And conversely for O'Malley, if he beats Marlon Moraes, he's immediately a contender. So I think those are 2 interesting options as well. As far as is O'Malley like overrated or overhyped, we'll have to see when he fights one of those ranked guys, because beating an unranked guy doesn't give us a huge indication of where he fits in that division.
Some good points there, Ross. What do you make this now? Like, it's about time Sean O'Malley stepped into the top 15. Like, he's on the main cards now, and like he needs to get into that top 15. Ross, what do you think? What do you think of Sean's performance? Like, just piggybacking off what James said there, and also what do you think is next for the Sugar Show?
I do think it was possibly the best performance of his career. He really, really did step it up. His striking looked so clean. I think sometimes his arrogance really works against him. He nearly had a walk-off KO once. He ended up getting it the second time out, which I think it does look very, very beautiful. And you do it. We all love a walk-off KO a la Mark Hunt, but I think on this occasion, he needs to make sure those guys are done before he starts walking away, especially in the lower weight classes. I mean, those guys recover a bit faster. The fight I want to see is undefeated Sean O'Malley get that scalp back and see if he can fight Marlon Cheeto Vera. I think that is a great fight. There's a bit of bad blood there. Why not make it a main event on a fight night and have them go 5 rounds? Although they do love
He
putting
didn't
Sean
notice he
O'Malley.
didn't mention him after the fight. Did you notice that? And I think
Yeah,
there's a reason
I
for that.
definitely noticed
I think
that.
he feels he's ahead of Cheeto at this point based off that win on Saturday. And I think him fighting Cheeto, he knows there's a risk he could lose again. Whereas he could probably, like I said, right now with the clout he got on this huge card, getting that stoppage win, I think he can get a higher ranked opponent and there'll be more of a reward in the end. If he beats Cheeto's 15, like you were just saying there, he's probably already top 15 as it is. So I mean, I would love to see that rematch. I'm curious to see how it would go. But I think as a businessman and you know, kind of looking at his career, O'Malley has his sights set higher. We'll see. And sorry to interrupt you, by the way.
No, you're fine.
Canadian
James.
reputation of being polite, but sometimes I get out of character.
Just one question on Sugar Sean O'Malley. Do you think he will permanently, until his stock actually drops, fight on the pay-per-views to increase pay-per-view buys? Because it seems to be a bit of a spot for him that he is one of the main card fighters on the pay-per-view. Do you think that's done on purpose and we'll continue to see that trend?
100%. Just look at the fact, what was it, last year he sold those limited edition basketball jerseys that sold for like $20,000, like the amount of sales total in like an hour. Like, this guy is a commodity. Like, he is a star for the UFC. It's very rare to have that because the UFC, as we know, does a terrible job promoting a lot of their fighters. It has to be a good self-promoter, and that's what O'Malley's done. He's built a good brand. He's catered to the you know, the Twitch and the YouTube like generation very well, and that's an audience that a lot of the fighters have not captured, and O'Malley's got that in spades. So he's a draw, and he will be on pay-per-views going forward. You'll see that because he is a moneymaker for the UFC.
Yeah, this sounds weird. He's almost like it's weird to say this because like we're not actually that old either, but he's sort of like, he comes across a bit of a TikTok generation. He knows that if he dyes his hair, it'll be more people will talk about. He's very, very the new age. It's like, that's why we had him on the show before, like, and we were both so bloody nervous, but like we saw he was just sort of like that another new a fresh wave, the way Connor sort of was, obviously different, but there's like more people are going to be like him, I think, after this as well.
And here's the other thing with O'Malley too. He's kind of playing up the heel role very well as well. That whole thing with Megan Anderson, like the fact that he didn't apologize, I'm not surprised at all. Like he probably feels that way, and B, like he's going to have a section of the fans that don't like him, but those are the ones that want to see him lose, right? So he's done actually a pretty good job of like creating this great brand and having people buy into the hype with his knockouts. And then you have the sector of the fans who are like, he's a misogynist, all this stuff. They would hate him anyways, but it doesn't matter. Like, he's actually like, it's actually benefited his career being like that.
Yeah, love him or hate him, you have to watch him.
Is he part of the Gary Vaynerchuk's?
He is Vayner Sports. He just signed with them a couple months ago. Yeah,
Vayner
he was with
Sports.
Daniel Rubenstein before that. He left him, was managerless for a little bit, and then he went to Vayner, I think, a month or two ago.
He is the perfect Vayner media sports person. He's a Twitcher. He loves it. They're gonna blow him up.
Gary's going to try and make him as big as Connor. 100%. Like, knowing Gary, that's what Gary's going to do. That's going to be his.
Also, alumni of the show, Gary Vaynerchuk, our first ever guest, believe it or not, James. So we started big. Sean O'Malley is one funky dude, but someone else who's a bit funky is Mr. Ben Askren. Did you see his press conference versus Jake Paul?
Yeah,
I caught bits and
pieces of it. Yeah, and I thought it was it was like, I don't watch press conferences like that. I usually sort of just catch the highlights after because there's going to be a lot of filler in there. Yeah. I thought Ben came away better than Jake did. I thought Jake, and the whole thing with Masvidal calling, it's like, I think people are kind of over that. Like, did you see Ben's tweet to Jorge over the weekend where he's like, Jorge, look, I'll be honest with you. I made you famous. You got one lucky knee. Like, I kind of agree with him. I think 9 times out of 10, if he fights Masvidal, that fight goes completely differently if Askren's able to utilize his wrestling. But no, I thought Askren came away great. I don't know if you saw the Rocky promo that Askren put out as well that he had, which was just very well filmed. It was very funny. Like, to me, Askren was the winner on the weekend. I think Jake, if anything, he's got to work on his public speaking. It's not, he didn't come across very good. Yeah. That was my perspective.
He looked very nervous, I thought.
Yeah. Because I think it's hitting him that, hey, I'm actually, like, not to say that Ben will win, but I think it's hitting him that, like, holy, like, I've never really had to do this fight promoting stuff that much. It's one thing to say you're going to box an NBA player, but to box an actual martial artist, someone that's, competed at a high level, is very different. And Ben's, he's no stranger to trash talk. I mean, he essentially made those fights with Masvidal that much more interesting with his trash talk leading up to it. So I think Jake was out of his element, to be honest. He's actually going against someone who knows how to talk trash.
Yeah. That's exactly what I thought as well. The way like Ben Askren, Jake Paul, I don't know if you saw this, but Jake Paul and Logan Paul, they both went to one of Ben Askren's wrestling camps, so they know exactly who Ben is. I mean, obviously Ben, they did wrestling, they would have known the wrestlers Ben in the Olympics. So like there has to be some sort of respect there as well. And then everyone knows that Ben Askren is not the most sought after skill in mixed martial arts, but I mean, the Jake Paul stuff, what he was saying to Ben, the way Ben didn't bite, and also he said, "I can like," what did he say? He said, "Like
I can homicide you.
I could commit homicide against you like right now if I wanted." And then Jake didn't say anything. I think Jake's like too busy trying to come across as Conor McGregor, and it's not really pulling it off because like who did he beat? He beat no one. He beat like
Nate Robertson, who's a retired NBA player. Like, that's the other thing with this fight where people are kind of drinking the Kool-Aid a little bit too much. Jake looked great in that fight. Don't get me wrong, but he just beat an NBA player. That's like, you know, like, I don't even know what the equivalent would be, but it's just like Ben's actually fought legit. Ben took a shot from Robbie Lawler and survived and still, you know, say what you want about the finish, but he still survived that. I mean, is Jake Paul Robbie Lawler? He's not. So it's, I think, you know, people got to slow the brakes down a little bit on Jake Paul in terms of that fight.
I think Daniel Cormier called it, and I had the same vision myself when Ben Askren was like pawed his face, and then like Jake Paul sort of went, "Oh no, what did he do?" And then like gave like sort of slapped him on the ass, or like I don't know what he went to get him the kidney.
Awkward. Wasn't that awkward? Really,
it was very awkward. I was like, I don't know what that is, and then I was like, I think Ben Askren's going to win now because like that's not what a fighter would do, and I just thought it was very awkward and very telling of Jake Paul's sort of aggression and fight IQ, to be honest.
Yeah, but he's taking on someone who's not afraid of him at all, like, you know, so and that must be really pissing him off. No one's taking him seriously. But I mean, like under like looking at it all, like fair play for Jake for getting into this situation. I know obviously it was like KSI and Logan Paul that really blew it up, but like I'm still interested to see what happened. But as from looking at that press conference, I'm less looking forward to it, if you know what I mean. But like I'm still going to be keeping eyes on it because so is everyone else. Because
it's the same night as Whitaker and Gaslam too, right? Which is kind of a bummer because I really want to watch that. I mean, I'll probably just watch both, but it's going to be so like I'm just intrigued to see what happens. Like, can Ben get his boxing good enough where he can beat a guy in Jake Paul, or does he do something crazy? Does he just shoot for a takedown just to screw the whole thing up? Like, he could do that. I mean, who knows, right? Like, it's the intrigue factor. It reminds me a bit of Chuck and Tito, to be honest, where it's like I have no idea what's going to happen, you know?
Yeah, and then like Justin Bieber's performing, I think Snoop Dogg, other people. It's just going to be a mad scene. So
it's
like
celebrity boxing in 2021. That's what it was. People don't know this, but celebrity boxing in the 90s had higher ratings than any of the UFC cards. Like, people don't know how big that was back when, like, you know, you had like Joey Buttafuoco and all these like celebrities, like no name celebrities boxing each other. But it's huge. This is the 2021 equivalent of that. That's what it is.
Yeah, I even think like Barstool Sports are doing stuff like this, and then also
Rock and Rowdy, the thing they do, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and then like then it came out that Logan Paul was meant to fight Floyd Mayweather. That's cancelled, but now he's going to be in the WWE in a few weeks' time. Like the world has just gone crazy.
I actually was saying to Barry on the phone there the other day, I think WWE is the perfect place for the Paul brothers. It's not real. They can make them win, and they can become bigger superstars, and they can almost direct traffic in their own night,
and that's their audience too, is the younger YouTube audience, right? Like, a lot of the pro wrestling fans, for the most part, I would think, are younger people, right? So that's going to go along. Like, everyone knows who Jake Paul is, you know. It's just one of those things. So
Cosmo, are we looking at Bellator this weekend?
Yeah, lads, who do you think's going to win as of right now, Jake Paul or Ben Askren?
I'm going to say Ben Askren.
I'm taking Ben too.
All right, I'm gonna have to.
I'll take that underdog money.
Why didn't you lads should have picked Jake Paul to give me the Ben Askren shout? But I mean, let's Jake Pauler for life. Okay. What are you okay, lads, Bellator is finally back. It's been ages. We had Big John and Punk on a while ago, and we were like telling them how much we were looking forward to this. But like, it's a great idea from them to make the pound for pound number one. Patricio Pitbull fighting in the Featherweight Grand Prix semi-final against Emmanuel Sanchez. Bellator 255. James, before we get into the card, right? What do you make of the way Bellator are like, right, Friday night under the lights is our night?
I like it. I think it's, you know, that they used to be on Fridays back in the Bjorn Rebney days. I like that idea. It doesn't go ahead. Like, there was nothing worse, like when Scott Coker first came in, when you'd have to flip back and forth between Bellator and the UFC. So I like the Friday night time slot. I like that they're on Showtime. I don't like that we have no way to watch this in Canada. Like, guys, you're dropping the ball here. Huge audience here in Canada. There's no TV deal, streaming deal that I know of. I've messaged the promotion. I still, at the time of recording this, have no idea if we can watch it. So hopefully they can fix that up, because do you want us to illegally stream? Like, I have to do my job. I have to figure out a way how to do that stuff. So hopefully it doesn't come to that. But yeah, that's my only gripe. But other than that, everything's good. I'm happy with the Friday time slot.
Ross, yeah, Friday nights.
Absolutely, especially on Showtime. I think they didn't come back for a very long time in 2021. And I was like, Jesus, like, the promotion going under or what? You know what I mean? These were the questions you were asked to ask yourself. And then the deal with Showtime sort of made sense. And obviously they were holding out to get the deal with Showtime. I hope this is improves their production for the entire show. I do think their fighter walkouts are actually better than UFC fighter walkouts.
Easily.
But like, bar that, I think, UFC sort of takes over their pre-fight stuff and their in-depth dives with fighters. But hopefully Bellator will get more into that because Showtime can tell a story. So hopefully we get a few stories told. I am looking forward to how good this April, start of May is going to be for Bellator. They have a full roster to play with, which is lovely. And we're going to see some very high-level mixed martial arts on Showtime.
Yeah, so here we'll start off with the main event. Patricio Pitbull, the champ is taking on Emmanuel Sanchez for the second time. James, what are you expecting here? Like Pitbull, he's the face of Bellator MMA right now. Like what do you sort of expect this? Because the winner takes on AJ McKee. That's the
other face.
The other face is a Pitbull AJ McKee final is what Bellator definitely want.
100%, and I don't think it's going to be easy. If you remember that first fight between Pitbull and Emmanuel Sanchez, Pitbull got by the skin of his teeth in that one, and I am picking him here. I had a chance to speak to both fighters before the matchup. Pitbull did his whole camp in Brazil. Sanchez, obviously, at Rufus Sport and doing most of his training out there. So we'll see. Sanchez is very much improved. You saw that in the Daniel Weichel fight in his last outing. He absolutely dominated Weichel, whereas their first fight was very close. But Pitbull's just, what can you say about this guy? Knocking out Pedro Carvalho, someone I know you guys know quite well at SBG. Finishing, Michael Chandler, which how good does that win look? I know, the shot was a little bit weird, but he still got the job done in that one. I'm picking Pitbull. I have to, just with his body of work and the fact that this guy only seems to lose decisions if he does lose, and it's very close. I think he goes out there, puts on a clinic, and I think he either gets a late finish or he just squeaks out a decision, just like the first fight. But I think it's going to be even more competitive than the first one, but I think Pitbull will get it done just slightly on the judges' scorecards.
Ross?
Yeah, it's a very interesting match because Emmanuel Sanchez has great cardio and like he can go the full 5 rounds at a very high pace, and he's got a great chin. Which, like, if you're looking for someone who is the guy to beat Pitbull, it's maybe that with high level wrestling. And Sanchez's wrestling isn't too bad either, but I do think Pitbull will get the job done. He is exactly what it says on the tin. He is a Pitbull. He's in there for the finish at all times, and you only have to give him a small open. He will take it. He's got power in both hands. He's got good jiu-jitsu as well. I think maybe a 4th round knockout, I think, for Pitbull.
This time I'm going to disagree with you, lads, because for the sake of Bellator, especially here in Ireland, like people want to see the highest of the high, and people that don't know. And AJ McKee defeated Brian Moore before, and Pitbull's like the face of Bellator. Like these guys need to be fighting for more people to be interested in Bellator. It's just the way it is, lads. But lads, there's a couple other names on this card as well. Like but who are you looking forward to seeing as well, barring the main event? James, we go to you first, bud.
This is not me mispronouncing anyone's name. Usman Nurmagomedov. That's not Kamaru Usman and Khabib Nurmagomedov. It's just Usman Nurmagomedov. I'm very curious to see his fight against Mike Hamill. Mike Hamill moving up a weight class in this one. Mike Hamill, if you remember, missed weight in his last fight. He's got another opportunity. I'm actually talking to Mike in about 15 minutes, so curious to see what he has to say about the camp. But looking forward to Usman Nurmagomedov. I'm also really excited. This fight is flying completely under the radar. Definitely a UFC level fight. Neiman Gracie and Jason Jackson. I've been very high on Jason Jackson for a while. This guy was, if you remember, was on Contender Series a couple of years ago. Busted his ankle. Didn't get, it was off for a while, came back, fought in LFA, I think, and then Bellator signed him, and I thought that was a miss by the UFC because Jason Jackson out of Sanford MMA, one of Gilbert Burns and Vicente Luque's teammates. This guy is unreal. Neiman Gracie switching camps now at King's MMA, so we'll see how that, if that changes anything, but I feel like the winner of this fight is going to fight Douglas Lima, I think, next, because these guys are outstanding, and this has got Fight of the Night written all over it.
Yeah, I do love that fight as well. I think it's definitely a contender matchup in the welterweight division. For me, I'm going to go with the big dogs. Matt Mitrione's fighting Terrell Fortune.
No, that fight's off. Terrell Fortune's now fighting Jack May. Remember Jack May, who used to be in the UFC? He's
I do remember him. All-time dad bod. Well, you know what? I'm going to still say I'm looking forward to that one because I'm looking forward to the Terrell Fortune side of it. I'm still very intrigued to see how far can he go in this game. He's one of those top wrestlers that Bellator picked up about 3 or 4 years ago, and let's see if he can still do the business. I'd be very interested to see that. In a division where the champion probably doesn't exist anymore because Ryan Bader is tied up in that light heavyweight tournament. So it could be 2022 before we see a heavyweight title fight in Bellator.
Yeah. Also, lads, look out for Magomedov.
He's the 17 Tiger, of course.
Yeah, he's 17-1. His only losses against Peter Yan, and then like Peter Yan beat him back. We had a striking coach on there before, James. He's Irish. He's from Donegal. Like I asked him if he had beat Aljamain Sterling, would he have called out Magomedov for a trilogy in the UFC? But Yeah, that, and then obviously shout out this weekend, Cage Legacy. We're supporting Irish. Sorry, how would you explain it, Ross?
Irish grassroots MMA.
Irish grassroots, sorry, excuse me. Yeah, so that's going to be this Saturday. So there's Bellator Friday, Saturday, just everything. It's going to be it's another big week of Irish and mixed martial arts around the world. Also, we're putting out our face-offs on this week as well. We had 2 lads fighting in the light heavyweight division, and they want to bang, bro. So make sure to check that out. But James, before we let you go, can you plug your stuff and let everyone know where they can find your work?
I work for a lot of outlets. First off, thanks for having me on, guys. Sorry I was late again, but
no,
you're great chat with you guys. Really appreciate it. Lynch on Sports, Twitter, Instagram, easiest way to find me, and YouTube, youtube.com/Lynch on Sports. I put all my interviews and playlists on there because I work for so many outlets, so you guys can find them all in there. I mentioned I interviewed both Patricio Pitbull and Emmanuel Sanchez, so check those interviews out. Also talked to Rob Font last week, talked to Jack Hermanson ahead of the Edmund Shabazian fight, talked to Sodiq Youssef, who's going to be in the co-main event of next week, and also talked to Valentina Shevchenko last week as well. So check that out, all on my channel, and appreciate the support, and thanks for having me on again.
No problem. We don't put our stuff out live, so no one can tell you we're late, which is fantastic.
I say it anyways. Now I look like a big jerk. You should have told me.
It's all right. It's all right. We always look like jerks, man. It's great.
What's called our favorite Canadian MMA journalist.
Ooh,
I've never even heard of that fellow.
Prestigious title.
I've never heard of that fellow from The Little Mermaid.
There we go. Okay, so guys, make sure to check out James's work as well. He does live streams, everything, and it's great to see someone who's so passionate about it, producing content. Also, I like the way you put those videos out with the fighters giving their predictions as well, because I remember
pros picks. Yeah, they're popular. I'll have one on Marvin Vittori and Darren Till out. The second part out later today at the time we're recording this.
No, I remember you put what you had one, and it was actually like hyper recommending one of our videos, and then it was when like Dylan Warren was called out by Jake Paul. It just kept pushing it. It was crazy. And then obviously I've been in contact ever since. And then now is the perfect time to get you on. And then I'm sure we'll get you on many, many more times as well. But you're doing great stuff over there. I'm flying the Canadian flag. But Ross, anything else to say before we wrap things up?
No, James, thanks a million for coming on. Go Canucks. If you are watching this video, make sure to like, share, subscribe. And as always,
one last thing. Where's James from?
Vancouver.
Stay
He nailed it. There you go.